guys, Matt here. Welcome to a very special episode of 11ty Life. Just to give you a little bit of background on today's episode, today we were working on some of the final tracks for the brand new upcoming Rad Science EP, and I had none other than Price Stevens, who is a longtime friend of the show and has appeared on it once or twice, I believe, before. He is an incredible session guitarist, and I decided to bring him over to the studio to just kind of explore some sonic possibilities and maybe throw around some ideas that I would not naturally come up with in my own creative state while we are making records. So hopefully you'll get to hear some of what he came up with whenever this brand new EP comes out. But I was so stoked to have him in the studio, and a fun day of us just tracking and trying out different guitar tones and pedals and arrangements quickly turned into a discussion, and I just decided to throw up some mics, and this is what happens. This is part of what 11ty Life is. This is part of what makes 11ty Life so much fun, is that it literally is just part of our lives. So this was a conversation that I got to have with Price. Somehow we ended up talking about God and Instagram and the meaning of life and different things about religion that we found kind of crippling. And it was just a very human moment for us to experience together. And I just decided to record it. And then about halfway through the conversation, we realized, oh, this is a podcast episode. So I thought maybe today would be a good time to just try out a very candid conversation between Price and I as an episode of 11ty Life, because it really is probably one of the closest things to a glimpse into just what happens in between making songs, in between in between beers, or in between just hanging out here in our world at Rock Candy Recordings in the beautiful Western North Carolina region. A huge thank you to everybody who is downloading the podcast, who is hitting the subscribe button on the podcast. I'm noticing more and more of you doing it, and it does not go unnoticed. A huge thank you from us to you for that, because you guys really do make this such a fun experience for us. Thank you to everyone who's purchasing stuff from the Rock Candy Recordings online store, and to everybody who is visiting Spotify and adding our album Rad Science to your Spotify saved list. It goes a hell of a long way whenever you do that, and we're eternally grateful to you for it. Anyway, yeah, so this is just a very raw and unedited moment that happened in the studio with Price and I I hope you like it.
These guys, it's a lot of people to not offend.
But why do you feel like you this has been my life for the past 3 years, has been, you know what? I'm just so tired of waking up every day and feeling like I'm going to offend everyone with my thoughts and with just me being here, and just like, if I were to tell people what I really thought, they would get offended. And at some point I was just like, fuck it. I have to do me. I have to be on like my own journey. And I don't know if it's right. I don't know if I'm right.
But I love that. That's who you're meant to be.
Do you think it's who I'm meant to be?
It is.
Oh, okay.
But I don't know about me, because you're a lot smarter than I am.
I seriously doubt that.
I can really back myself into a corner real quick.
How's your mic doing?
I think it's good.
Check that out.
Hey, check 1, 2.
Oh yeah, you sound great.
Good.
That's great. It's fantastic.
I hate my voice.
Do you really?
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know. Do you hate your voice when you hear it?
No,
Probably not.
I love it.
Yeah, I would too if I had that voice.
It's not true. No, I actually so I've been working on all of this new 11ty stuff, or working on the new 11ty EP, and I'm having to go back and like track stuff. And I feel like, so one of the songs that we're tracking is Appalachian Wine, the one that we were working on today together. And like, I listened to the vocal performances that I gave in 2012 when we first put that out, and I'm like, oh my God, it's fucking terrible. But then the stuff that I'm putting out now, I'm like, I feel more comfortable with my voice. I feel like way more in control of it than I feel like I ever have been. So I'm like happier with the results, but I give it like 2 weeks. Yeah. We'll put this record out, and then all of a sudden I won't like it anymore.
So has that song been out before?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. when you record vocals, do you like to do it by yourself, away from everybody, or are you?
Oh, I never like to record vocals in front of people,
Yeah.
which is so sad because I love when people record vocals in front of me.
Yeah.
Or I guess maybe because I feel so self-conscious about it, I'm always like nervous whenever I'm recording other people because I want them to feel
Safe.
super safe and like
Yeah.
you don't have to. Like I don't think the studio should be like a super loud or high pressure place.
But it is.
It is because you want to walk out of there with something good.
Yeah.
Everybody does. Everybody wants that.
It's the judgment zone.
Yeah. It's our own personal hell. that we put each other, that you have to get closer to the mic. Yeah, I know it's gonna suck.
I know it's
gonna suck. I'm gonna keep all this noise of you like handling the microphone in there too. I mean, if there's one like resounding piece of feedback that we get from everybody that listens to 11 Life is that they're like, I love hearing people fiddle with the microphone.
Really?
No.
Oh, you mean from this point forward,
oh, yeah.
It will be like that.
Yeah.
How's that?
Yeah, that's great. That sounds amazing. You sound amazing.
Thanks.
Yeah. So we were like, so for everybody at home listening, earlier today, Price came over because we live pretty close to each other here in the beautiful mountains of Western North Carolina. And we had a few tracks that I wanted for Price to play on. And, just
more than one?
Well, yeah. I mean, we never got to
really?
No, I invited you over for one of them, and then I was like, we're going to have a little bit of a value added scenario. It's not true. That's why like literally sessions with me are so low pressure, because I just think like I don't tell people what I hope that we get to.
Yeah.
Because I'm literally just like, whatever happens today is a little mini miracle for us. So like, let's just be happy with it. And then when you go in thinking that you have to do like 5 or 6 songs or something, it's like not inspiring.
No.
At all.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and I didn't feel any pressure other than what I put on myself. Should have probably practiced more. But
I sent you the song like 3 days ago though.
No, it's good. I listened, I felt good about it going into it.
Well, I mean, like at this point, I just feel kind of bored with me, which is why I called you.
That's a good place to be, though.
Yeah, because I knew that you like, because you have your own studio set up and you love doing guitar stuff and you live in this world, and I kind of just live in the world of like all of the production. So I'm just doing.
Yeah, but I live in a world where I'm never sure of what I'm doing. So basically what I'm saying is now that we broke the ice, I feel good with what I can bring to the table for that song and others.
What describe the ice? What is it? Just like an assumption that you have?
That's actually a good question.
Yeah.
It's probably what everybody feels going into, quote unquote new project. It's the idea of like, you kind of question everything. Am I really any good at what I do? Why does anybody want to have me to do anything? But do I need to sound like what they're going to want me to sound like, maybe? Or maybe I need to sound like what their old guitar player sounds like? I don't know. I
am our old guitar player.
Right. Trust me. I'm just thinking bigger picture, not necessarily for you and I. But in general, I think a lot of people struggle with that. Trying to like fill these shoes of expectation that are never there for them to fill anyway. And then there's this like big movement. It's really awesome.
Yeah.
That I keep hearing about and I think this too, like you really are created to be you.
So
for
much
what
hand movement
you
happening.
bring to the table.
Yeah.
And, man, yeah. So if you try to not be that, what follows that is anxiety and fear and self-doubt and insecurity and all these things. But if you would literally just, what you were talking about, I'm literally just going to be myself and not worry about what other people think. That comes with confidence and just, it's what you were designed to do. No one can do that better other than you.
But why is every single message that we get in society sort of like, you need to conform to the norm? Like you need to, like, if you're thinking outside of this box, you're asking these questions, or, you know, this sort of life comes more naturally to you than this other sort of life does, then you should really work to bring yourself back into the fold. I just have a hard time with that.
Sure. I feel like that's a broad question. Like,
it is.
What is the
broad.
norm? Or are you saying what conform to what? Like, and who's saying that? I wonder, like, I'm trying to, you know.
Well, at this point, I feel like I grew up with a lot of messages that were like, be yourself. You know, like express yourself, like fully express yourself. You be you. You've got to do you. And then, but I feel like the people telling you that are people that are trying to sell you image. So, for instance, like you turn on the television and it's like, everyone needs to be able to express themselves fully. And with our new fall line of clothes, and it's like, I don't think my self-expression is clothes. I don't think that everyone's going to get to know me, or that I'm going to get to know me by changing the packaging. And I feel like all of that is sort of geared towards like, you've got to really be you. So like, you want to be goth, or you want to be like preppy, or you're going to be like a popular person or an unpopular person. And here's how those people dress. Yeah. And here's their brand standards that they have. And everyone's turning into their own mini startup and their own little mini tribe, but it's all so topical. It's all so just like surface foam.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with anything. It's just clothing. It's just imagery. It's like none of it's reflective of like the hurt that everyone has to go through, or the loss that people suffer, or the doubt that people feel about themselves or about their existence.
No, it's good. You're making me think of a great conversation I had with a buddy of mine. I think you would love this. Sort of talking about that. We were talking about like too far back.
No, you got to get closer to them.
Okay.
There you go. That's it.
I'm trying to think how we hopped into it, but basically trying to have identity.
Yeah.
Right. And I basically brought up the idea that this is nothing new, that with social media in the internet age we live in, it's you can just easily pull up and kind of see what is cool. It's like, is this cool? I can verify or not.
By Googling what is cool.
I mean, kind of, or you just see who has like 1 million followers on Instagram and it's like, oh, this is clearly cool.
Right.
And it's like a fact. Or you can get on Pinterest and be like, oh, cool kitchen. I can clearly see what's cool. And you basically start like, so essentially, if this, that idea spreads, everybody's doing this idea, right? Everybody's becoming sort of clones. You can see it in music. It's, what's popular, what's successful. I'm merely going to duplicate that formula and also be cool. Okay, so what's the good and the bad of that? Mainly the bad, I guess. Or wonder, we were talking about identity. Therefore, do you really have any real identity or expression? Is it authentic? Is it really yours? Or are we cloning a lot of things? And then I started like taking it further and being like, I feel like in society, everything's becoming less and less localized, even though it's cool to have like local made beer or whatever. But is it, how much more are people traveling? Like, I remember growing up, going to Charlotte was like going to another country.
Yeah.
It was you didn't know how to get there. It's whatever. But now, everybody
didn't know how to get to Charlotte.
I'm just, literally you had to be like, hey Dad, how do you get to Charlotte? Or anywhere. But it's just like, now it's like weekend warrior trips. Everybody goes everywhere. I just feel like people are becoming less and less local or have identity, whereas they actually choose the way they want to dress, kind of what you were saying, with how they feel, what they can find, and actually have a reason for it, I guess, for that's more authentic than them verifying that it has been cool somewhere else already. Does that make any sense?
I think so.
It's actually kind of like the idea of going to Goodwill and finding like, hey, this is a rad t-shirt. I actually like the way this looks for some reason, rather than saying, oh, I saw Mary Hipster 202 post this shirt also, and it got so many likes.
Right, yeah.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely. Just feeling like I just want to wear things that I like, that I happen upon, that I like.
That you genuinely like because of, I guess, your experience in life. I don't know. And
your preference.
I haven't thought this out. This is
good. This is good.
Yeah, merely preference, and I guess you just base it on your experience, right? Rather than someone else's experience and proven that it is cool.
I feel like that's definitely a healthier way of approaching like what you're going to wear. I think my whole thing is like, okay, but what, oh my gosh, I'm sorry. I've had so much beer today. Every time you come over.
I've got lots of people to please.
Right. I'm like I think I'm just against the whole idea of people feeling like what they wear is somehow a reflection of who they are or of their worth or of their value as an individual, as a person. Like I do think that it's people are happier when they're just like, I just want to wear what I want to wear. And if you want to put on a Superman costume and come to work that day, I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's really great.
Yeah.
I think everybody has to pay the consequences for over or underdressing
yeah.
in society. But like that just, it is what it is. If that's what you feel comfortable with, that's probably the most sincerest form of self-expression, but not like literally just self-expression on a very topical level. Like, oh, this is just a preference that I have. This is not indicative of my value as a translucent human being that exists on several different planes.
Is it?
Mate, I don't know.
Okay, yeah. The reason I say that, it's like, well, now I feel like we are judged more and more based on that.
Based on image.
Yeah, like, I mean, I don't know. I guess it is surface level, but again, like, if you dress cool and you can socially media prove that you dress cool,
yeah.
You all of a sudden have validity but is it, obviously it's not like real self-worth or validity, but what is real self-worth or validity
right
today?
Like you're just saying it just kind of makes you part of the tribe where people are like, oh yeah, this guy dresses interesting, so he somehow must have it together. I don't know what that is, but I remember it being so much more important in high school.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. But then I also have friends that like, they take fashion very seriously. They want to help people. They're like, there's something about putting on a specific set of clothes and about feeling good about yourself that really can help you feel better.
And I love that. I'm not, and I hope I'm not sounding like I'm downing those who actually like, or have their, cause I don't, look at me, man. But, I love anybody who takes passion in what they do. And if that is literally like, dressing awesome and posting pictures on Instagram to get a lot of likes, like, man, you go for it. I love that.
I guess that is a form of self-expression that I don't entirely, I don't get.
Medium. Yeah. Art medium. Ooh.
I don't know if it's an art medium.
Is it? I mean, tell me, why not?
Well, I think because when I see art, one of the common denominators that I find in art that I gravitate towards, this is maybe not true for everyone, but I almost feel like the art that I see that I really appreciate always seems to be taking a concept that is much bigger than us or this moment that we're in, sort of pointing us towards something bigger.
Okay.
And I feel like fashion is sort of self-aggrandizing. It's sort of like, this is how good I can look. This is how elevated I am. This is how put together I can be. When I feel like the truth of almost everyone is just pure brokenness.
That's a good point. No, I definitely do not disagree. I think the general mass of, and I guess we're just talking about Instagram posters or whatever. Yeah, it's pretty self-indulging. But I think it leaves opportunity, and I'm sure there are some out there that I'm trying to think, but that are actually doing that, like doing something really neat and creative.
That are using their own, their fashion.
And it may not be clothes, but it may be like photographs, and I guess that's not a new medium, but it's not. If it's of yourself and if it's of your own clothes, I don't see how it could glorify any greater thought.
I just think I've seen those people. I'm not saying that I speak for the entirety of humanity, far from it, but the people that I have seen, the people that I know, like even when I'm just scrolling through my Instagram feed, I'm like, that might be one of the most beautiful people that I've seen. And then maybe one of the most miserable at the same time.
100%.
And then I think like, oh, these are people that I actually know. And I know that their families are kind of like falling apart at the seams, and that like, and I'm watching it happen outside of Instagram, but it's still like Instagram portrays a completely different story. And I don't know what it is in people that makes it feel so necessary for there to be this illusion that like everything is so put together and everything is working so well, when we all know when we're off Instagram and we're not taking pictures of like the highlight moments. Like I've been with people where the couples were in a fight, and in the middle of the fight that they're having, and I didn't know if they were going to make it through this fight. They just stop and pose by something.
Automatic.
And then one of them will say something really nice about the other person. Like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm with this girl. She's been my bae for like 5 years now.
Ew.
It makes me feel gross just talking about it.
No, that is real. Gosh. I know. Who's to say? When will we find out? But absolutely, there's something clearly wrong at that foundationally.
Well, the other thing too is like if you were to post a thing, like I'm trying to bring this home for me. Yeah. If you were to post something on Instagram that was like that was saying something super, super honest about your relationship or with someone, with anyone,
sure,
and it was like, don't know if we're gonna make it. Or, man, I give this another 3 months. Like, or just really going through a rough time and not sure if we're a perfect match. Like, nobody would post that shit ever. Like, on social media. Because that's almost like this unwritten rule. And if I saw you do that, I would be like, oh my God, I got to call him.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean?
It was serious.
Yeah. So it's like,
that's interesting.
Maybe it's wrong. Maybe it's wrong for me to be like, why is everybody creating this false persona? But the thing is, if I were to see something different than the false persona, I don't know how I would take it.
Yeah. I just wish that the whole social media would be used for more lighthearted stuff. I don't think it should be used for, and I'm guilty of it, for the heaviest, like, oh, I'm so glad I found this life soulmate. He is the greatest thing. She is the greatest thing. It's like that's awesome. That's sweet. That's awesome. But it's all, the internet was intended for puppy pictures and like goofy oddball people falling on ice kind of thing. Like I wish it was that. But with that said, I do feel like, especially on Facebook, there are more of those like nightmare stories.
Yeah.
It's a different breed of people on Facebook, I feel like. rather than Instagram.
So you feel like
They
social
are
media is
migrating.
like splitting people into tribes?
Well, I think it did originally, but I feel like everybody's catching up and it's all becoming one. I can't remember what I was going to say about something you said earlier, but it's okay.
People, social media, image, love.
Is all we need.
You were playing me some worship songs earlier.
Yeah.
And I was like, because I don't follow any of that stuff. Because I spent so many years like sharing the stage with so many worship bands and everything, and it just kind of burned me out on it. And and then you were saying, because you live in this world, and you're like, I've seen where it was and then where it is, and then I'm listening to this like worship music, and what we were playing like Bethel and Hillsong, and. Not to talk shit about Bethel and Hillsong, but everybody that makes music, like the second that I put music on the internet, somebody hates it. Like, I get it. There's always haters.
Yep.
I think I still to this day don't quite understand worship music.
Yes.
I still kind of feel it's this big reverberous, artificial recreation, or it's it's trying to fabricate something very eternal and powerful that we as humans cannot, I feel like, fail at fabricating time and time and time again. We know it when we see it and when we witness it and when we're a part of it, like these things that make us feel transcendent, or they make us feel like, oh wow, I think I got a glimpse behind the veil. But I feel like worship music tries so hard, like, to make
in
those moments.
And like I said earlier, it's like, well, is that really a bad thing? Is that the worst that, if they're trying? I get it at the same time. Like, well, you kind of see the ulterior motive behind it all.
Yeah.
I guess. Side note, in my head, I just thought, like, isn't it funny that I was telling you, like, oh, you really just have to hear the bass. We need to plug it into a better system and you'll like it better.
I feel like you're telling me that you really appreciate the production quality of it.
I totally do. I think anybody that's into it does. And that's certainly a big part of the movement, that has been able to sell so many records. I just think there's a huge fascination on guitar tones and drum tones. And I mean, we were at lunch today, and then, one of our friends was just like, oh, the snare tone is so spectacular. It's like, and it's awesome. Like, I'm not, but anyways, that's just part of the big fascination. And it's intriguing, like, to hear sonically such good things, and it's subjective, but it makes you wonder, like, well, what's really the meat, especially if it's worship music, right? Should you have to rely on this, like, slaying guitar tone to, like, make it mean something or feel something? But at the same time, it's like, man, that's pretty awesome. Like, if anybody's going to have great tone, let it be the Christians, like, have incredible tone, I don't know. But still, I feel like everybody's chasing tone that has already existed throughout the 50s and the 60s. It's you will not get better than that.
The thing I still can't figure out is how you can have all of these people that have, like, you have so much talent and so much production at your fingertips. You're a Bethel, you're a Hillsong. You have access to all of these different songwriters and this entire, like, you have people that subscribe to the Christian faith that gravitate towards you. Like, when I was teaching college, like, I had so many students that were like, man, just my dream is to play for Bethel, or to play with Hillsong, or to, like, share the stage with them at some point. And I'm like,
that's interesting.
It is interesting, because I think to myself, like, I can't imagine being more miserable. But that's just me. Like, because when we were listening through, like, 2 or 3 of these latest albums, and even me as a producer, as a songwriter, there's such a similarity to everything happening. And I know what an asshole this makes me sound like. I'm not, like, I know, because I'm a musician, because I create for a living, because I write songs, I should be held to a higher level of scrutiny whenever I express things I
Sure.
don't like in other music. Absolutely. So
Yeah.
everybody that's listening to the podcast right now wants to like hate on me. Go ahead and do it because I deserve it. But everything feels so homogenous. It just like, it's super reverb drenched, like larger than life, everything. And I'm just like, if this is the music that all Christians are sort of, not all, most Christians who are purchasing music, and consuming music and a part of this culture are all consuming, how is everybody so on board with this like watery,
it's interesting
sort of, everybody's drinking the same % milk. Like,
I don't know. It speaks to the bigger kind of thing that you and I talk about all the time, is the dumbing down of the market, so to say. But they are like, it is this whole movement of the last 5 years that consists of Hillsong United and Jesus Culture and Passion City Church and Bethel and Elevation Worship, and it's
it feels to me like they're happy. They're happy to take the monopoly on it, on saying like, this is what worship sounds like.
Yeah, I would certainly say that they've identified the worship sound and made it a genre and said, this is, again, going back to Instagram, it's like, this is how you make successful worship music, right? It's formalized.
I know, but that's what I was kind of getting to with the Instagram conversation, is that when I listen to worship music now, modern worship music from all the heavy hitters, I guess that you would say within that world, it feels more like an Instagram post of spirituality than it does an actual expression of what's going on in an individual's life. Yeah.
Well, I don't want to put myself in those shoes to say what someone else might be experiencing, because that they may be experiencing the greatest thing.
Yeah.
And if so, amazing, like awesome, awesome. And also, I think, and I hadn't thought about this though, with this first wave of music, because it is really the first generation of this era of worship music we're in, right? People like you and I are, and all my friends are literally like, ooh, I'm sick of that sound, right?
Yeah.
It only will open the door for something fresh and hopefully creative to come into the picture. Like, now that they're, you and I are hungry for something real, right?
Yeah, as creators, not as consumers, maybe, because I would put us more like on the creator.
Yeah, but I'm still a consumer. I want to buy records. And
You're still a fan of stuff.
I am, but it is. I've been for years now, I feel like, in a rut of finding bands that I love.
Really?
Like I used to. And I think part of that's just me. And but part of it too, I think, is just the pool of choices is endless. And to actually have a relationship with a band is like a serious commitment in my head to some degree, to like learn what are you really trying to put across? It's a relationship. And it's just hard to like, it's just like, this just the world we live in. It's like, if you're tired of it, move on. There's another one right behind it. And I don't know how to handle that really as like a music consumer, because I guess for me, all my favorite bands growing up, and you're the same way. So many people say this, I used to read the liner notes and, all this stuff. Yeah. And it's like, clearly there's something to that. I'm still waiting for Spotify to put a liner note option. I cannot believe it does not exist, but anyways, but there's something to that. I do. I have my favorites still and new bands that I found, but it's not as easy as it was when there was less in the pool.
In terms of like finding out who the creators
like a new band, like we used to look forward to like, oh, what are the albums coming out this year? And you can list like the 5 bands that were like putting out like albums to come.
This reminds me.
And you waited on them.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. But you and I were like, I don't mean to sound like an old fart because I'm like,
Yeah,
everybody,
we both literally sound like only
everybody our age is like, why can't it be like it was 15 years ago when I loved life and I wasn't so jaded and I wasn't on my third marriage? Like, I get it. But yeah. Why can't it be that good? Well, I guess because the earth doesn't stop spinning and we have to figure out how to live now. And the past is over. It's done.
Absolutely.
And we can, there's not a lot you can do to relive it outside of your own mind.
Yeah. So it's basically a similar concept of having to relearn to do anything, as you age and get older and technology changes and this and that.
Well, we were talking about like people, like attention spans. So it's like all of the, best practice in the music industry right now is you have a bunch of people that are like, why are you putting out albums? Why are you putting out albums? People's attention span is too short. Put out singles and put out singles frequently. And my whole, like my response to that is that might be what a specific demographic within the market wants. And that might be where we're headed. But I think that speaks to a deficit of attention span of what we were talking about that I think is far more of a dangerous thing. And I'm not saying that the way to change everyone's attention span is to keep putting out long ass albums that no one's ever going to hear everything on. Yeah. But at the same time, I think to myself, for me, as a creator, you are
creating your own art,
I need to create batches of songs. Yes. I need to discipline myself to get alone and get quiet and to create a thought that's longer than 3 minutes long. I need to create something that I feel like is worth saying that's longer than just a pop song, because I think you can't express everything that needs expressing within that moment. I think you can get a snapshot of something really fun and real and important, but like it's important to be able to sit down and pay attention to something. It's important for me to sit down and listen to what someone created through 10 tracks.
Yes.
Like to give somebody an hour of my ear. Like, yes. And follow it through and not be distracted and not get on my phone and not just like hear what another human has to say.
Of course, I totally agree.
Yeah.
But that's kind of probably where the idea of the starving artist came from, because I don't think that's the mass, which dictates where the money goes. And a lot of times, especially in today, right? There's just not, we're in an age where people are rarely going to give an album a full listen. Yeah. And I'm as guilty as the others. So even though it's important, doesn't mean it will be successful. Or does it? Will it eventually break through? Will the greater good prevail? I don't know.
I don't know, because everything that I see happening right now just leads me to believe that we ultimately become distracted. That you have all so many people gosh, this is going to sound so controversial when I say it. I think there's so many people with mental health problems. There's so many people that are like, I struggle with depression. I struggle with all these different things. And I get it, because I've been there too. I've been on medication for depression. I've been through a lot of different hoops that a lot of other people have been through. And yet I haven't been through nearly all of them. So I don't know what everybody's individual thing is, or their struggle with that. But I do kind of feel like, have you ever noticed how you feel more centered as a person when you give yourself time to be alone and to be quiet, or to stick with a thought, or to sit down and just sort of bask in the uncomfortability of being by yourself for a moment, of not being able to like flip on your phone, not being able to call somebody, like just driving. Yeah. Like even when we were on tour, it was like, man, that was the most
how you survive.
Introspective time of my life, because I had nothing else to do except for, and I hated whenever people would put the radio on, because I was like, oh man.
Man, me too. I'm a quiet driver.
Yeah.
I do not care. I mean, I go back and forth, but I remember I used to drive Anna crazy because I would cut the radio off in a heartbeat, because I just love to just reflect in my thoughts.
Yeah.
And, but yes, especially the introverted me, I totally 100% agree with you.
Yeah.
But you make me think like, but I'm the first one to say, oh, well, maybe that's not for everybody. Maybe, the extrovert needs to be around people and needs to have stimulation to like recharge, but maybe not. Like what you're making me think is like, that's actually by design, it's like, maybe like that's how we recenter in a lot of ways. It's just like literally quietness and, reflecting on your own thoughts and your own heart. And I don't know.
It makes me wonder why, if there is intelligent design to how we were made, why is that the way that we were made? And why do we, as mankind, constantly try to fill that hole with anything other than quietness?
Anything.
Yeah. Like literally.
And it's more so than ever now. It's out of control. But if you take it back further, it's making me think like was it ever intended to be anything more than, I guess, first community, like, interaction with other humans. And then after that, it's got to be like necessity, right? Like food, shelter, just basic survival skills.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So community and survival, and then what?
I guess I don't really know because
well, that's where the rest, I guess, just starts being fluff.
Well, there've been
or
so
distraction.
Many, like I don't entirely understand. Maybe I need to research this more. Like I don't entirely understand the conversation about community and why it's so important, but maybe because I'm living in so many different communities on an intellectual, on a global, on a regional scale, like that for most people, it was like, whoever's within this 3-mile radius, like this is your community. You're dependent on them
yes,
for
that's
water
what I
and
was
food.
saying.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
The localization.
Right. And I'm like, I'm not dependent on anyone. I mean, when I got married, I got pretty dependent.
Yeah.
Because I was like, oh, wow, food just shows up out of nowhere.
Amazing.
Right. There's a reminder to take a shower. But there's so much that I don't need. I can go for so long just within isolation. I crave isolation because I'm happy being connected with myself. But then I do things like this podcast, where I literally, it's an excuse to get people in the same room and talk to them about stuff. And it's so controlled. And I think that I don't know if it's weird that I don't feel dependent on other people. I don't feel like, oh my God, I have to see somebody, I have to talk to somebody. Like, I don't understand that facet of needing community so much that like, wow, I'm just dying inside because I don't have other people. I totally relate. That's why we like to hang out, I guess. Are we rare?
I think we're the rare
we like each other because we
yeah.
don't need each other.
Totally. Yeah. There's something to that.
Yeah.
You can sniff someone that's clinging right away, But I like to idealize, and I think a whole generation likes to idealize this term community because it looks cool on Instagram.
Yeah.
But there is something to it, I think. Even just sheer communication, I guess, at the most basic level, right? It's kind of like you're most human, I guess, with the way you interact with others. And I don't know. I don't like it a lot of times, but
yeah, I heard that spoken about so often, where people were like, especially growing up in church, like youth pastors or pastors would always say, you got to find a church, you got to find a body of believers, and y'all that are going off to college, go ahead and find you a community of believers. And then I wonder, looking back on that, it seems more like what they were saying was, don't stray from this tribal belief, this way of looking at the universe, this way of looking at religion.
Totally.
Don't stray from the Southern Baptist Convention or whatever it is. And then you're like, yeah, but I want something other than that.
Yeah.
I see people that listen to our music that have been part of our conversation. It's like, I'm in a totally different place that a lot of people that listen to our music are. Because I think there are so many people that just kind of assume, because we talk a lot about Christianity, we talk a lot about Christ and what does it mean and everything.
Sure.
It's just because we have a lot of questions. It's not because we entirely know where we stand on any of that stuff. But I did grow up in it. And when you grow up in it, you just kind of have this, like, these moments of, if you don't distance yourself enough from it, you won't be able to see how beautiful it can be, but also what it's all made of for you. Like, don't get to the end of your life. Don't be on your deathbed feeling like, I never kicked the tires on this thing. I lived my entire life based around this belief system, and I never once questioned it because it scared the shit out of me. And because what if I'm wrong?
Yeah.
And right now, like, if I have a religion, I would say it's just a religion of questioning. I love the idea of Jesus Christ. I love the idea of this person that I read about, Jesus, in the Bible. And I feel like there's the research that I've done and the extensive, like, hours of, like, like, just having conversations about, well, what does it all mean? And what does it mean for me right now? What does it mean for the single mother of two? And what does it mean for, the guy who's just trying to get clean water for his family in Africa? And does it mean the same thing? And are we all talking about the same God? Are we talking about the same experience here on the planet? And I'm so much more happy just saying, like, living in the I don't know.
Yeah.
And just trying to be present.
That's
here.
Being in an honest place is the place to be, right?
Yeah.
It makes you jealous of the person that's, like, so got it all together, but they're believing it without, like, I mean, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, the ignorance, the bliss. You
don't know if they kick the tires on what they believe or not.
Totally. But they are fine. It's not that they're fine either way. It's just like they just have no doubt that the tires are good.
I don't know if I believe that, though.
For anyone,
I think that people.
I feel like people are
always
able
doubt.
to be on a surface level like that. They're just like multi levels, right? Of thinking, and if you stay on that surface level, it's like everything that's great. But once you start diving deeper and exploring potential other possibilities, it doesn't mean you have to acknowledge that the one you came from is wrong. It's just like,
I would rather figure out a way to surf the wave of doubt than to drown in it.
That's good. Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, you are. I mean,
I'm trying.
It's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. But I've definitely seen it. It hurts people that I care about.
That's hard.
Anybody that's, like, going on their own journey, I'm like, you know what? I don't even know if we were supposed to talk about this right now.
I don't think we have any rules at this point.
I'm just like, I'm not going to live my life in fear of hell. I'm not going to live my life like with this imaginary assumption that somehow if I don't follow these rules and do this thing, that I burn alive for eternity. Yeah. But because there's nothing about this story of Christ that I believe kind of has anything to do with that. Or even just looking at, like, why would you? Why would you dedicate your life to this imaginary set of rules? And, like, you have none of us have any proof of what happens in the afterlife. We literally just have, just like every other culture, just these sacred texts that just say, well, maybe there's this place, maybe there's not.
No, I have a hard time with that. Totally. I think about that all the time. You know, the loyal Southern conservative side of me doesn't want to explore that sometimes, but then
does it feel unsafe to get rid of hell?
Well, I just don't know. Not really unsafe. I mean, I do go there in my own mind. I
to
just
hell.
Don't make it. Been there and done that.
I airbus to hell and back.
But to me, okay, so if I like, and again, I'm like probably not I'm certainly not the best person to go here because I'm just don't have the theological background, right?
You don't have to be theologically sound to express your human experience.
But it's almost like I would love to like bounce this off somebody. But the idea that essentially if hell exists and Christ died for all sin, right? Past, present, future. I even, and this is probably horrible, I even think a lot of times that, me and you were like, well, the idea is that you have to acknowledge Christ dying, right? for that to cover your sin.
Right.
But then is that really all sin, past, present, future? No, the sin is covered whether it's covered or not. So, I mean, I don't know. These are just ideas I'm passing out. But so therefore, if you say that so-and-so sins are not covered and therefore they're going to burn in hell, that's, to me, I'm receiving that as what Christ did on the cross is less valued because it actually didn't work for this person. I'm not saying this as well as it words out in my head.
Yeah, I think
so you're saying you're devaluing the cross because it didn't cover all sins, because this person did not acknowledge it.
Which when I read the Bible, it feels easier for me to say, I think that sounds more like heresy, to say that there's all of these. Yeah. It sounds more like heresy to say, there's this beautiful narrative of this person who is the incarnation of whatever created all of this and a giver of life and the origin of all things. And somehow he comes to earth in the form of his son. And every single person that he meets along the way, he's constantly saying to them, you're missing the point. You're missing the point. You're missing the point. And then ultimately says, oh, if you guys care about this so much, you get this sin thing, this law, this being bigger and better than each other, saying that you are somehow more worthy of an afterlife than the other person is because you've adhered to this set of rules. And he just kind of comes along and says, pardon my French, fuck it. I am the way. Actually, you don't have to worry about this anymore. I am the way, the truth. And I'm just going to get up here and just die for all of it. And there's no reason for me to. But here, if I cover all of it, will you guys chill out?
I'm tired of the bickering.
Yeah.
And then that's kind of, and then therefore, maybe we're missing the point.
Maybe, yeah.
And the bigger way is saying, look, there's a better way to go about this life. You don't have to carry the weight of this stuff, of trying to figure out, is this right? Is this wrong?
The weight of making correct decisions.
Yeah.
That's what, to me, the longer that or at least, in the past 18 months for me, this has been, I have realized that the weight of making correct decisions about everything is something that's so hard for people to not worship, because it's like everybody wakes up every day and they're like, should I take this job? Should I not take this job? Should I leave my job? Should I leave my family? Is my marriage working? Should I leave my husband? Should I leave my wife? Would I be happier somewhere else? Would I be where? And I feel like you get so caught up in that, how should I respond to people? What's the best way to honor God in this situation? And I just think to myself, those are the most miserable people that I know.
Yeah.
It's the people that have somehow can accept, can acknowledge, can just say, I'm not in control of it. Yeah. I'm not in control of it. It doesn't mean I'm going to be irresponsible, but I can only make the best decision I can make right now. And it's okay if I make a wrong one. It's okay if I make a wrong decision.
I've made every wrong decision.
Yeah.
But it's literally, okay. So maybe acknowledging that decision,
right?
Going back to what I was talking to, is more like, it's more like an opportunity Of course, if you believe in it, if you believe in the goodness, the fruits that the Lord has to offer, right? Should you want to live this life, to actually like take them and eat of them and enjoy them, and move forward. It's not. It's not and I could be wrong. Maybe an eternity-based decision of. Basically, it's just like, do we have the ability to access what heaven offers now? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
What if heaven and hell are now in the same place, and we are at the crossroads and able to take our life and live it through the lens of the lens of heaven, or the lens of hell? Is that the heaven and hell?
Right.
And we're talking about C.S. Lewis. Did the whole book on it.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I totally like wonder, like, is that not hitting it right on the head?
Yeah.
If you train yourself, or it's not even about you training yourself. You're just open to the idea of letting God work through the good, through yourself. You learn to love the things of God, or you learn to like not love the things of God. The same experience for you and I could be heaven for one, or hell for the other.
For another. Yep. Yeah. The longer that I sit in this, the more I'm convinced that if the gospel is real, if Jesus was real, and if everything he said is true, this is not a gospel for the afterlife. It's a gospel for the inner life. It is not fire insurance.
I wonder this all the time. Yeah. It's an opportunity to live a higher life now,
right?
In the midst of cancer, in the midst of like death, or like bankruptcy, all the worst things, whatever that may be for you. You have the ability to have those fruits of like faith, hope, peace, love, joy in those moments.
Right.
Whereas somebody else may literally crumble.
Oh my God.
Depression, anxiety, melt,
I love
suicide.
That.
Right?
I've felt for so long, these are not things to be fabricated. Like when the Bible talks about having the fruits of the Spirit, love, joy, peace, patience, long suffering, kindness, all of that stuff. The people that you know in your life who fabricate that shit, and you have to live with them on a daily basis, you both become suicidal at the end of the day, because
you get spotted a mile away.
Yes, because they're trying to create something from nothing. They're trying to create the illusion of joy. They're trying to fucking Instagram
they
joy
at one
and
time
peace.
may have experienced it, and they fell in love with it, and they thought it's good, and then they kind of whatever. But ever since then, they're trying to replicate it. And it's like, man, you are so far off the path. And all you're doing is giving a negative stereotype for every person to see what you're doing and to hate on it.
Yeah.
And no, that's a whole nother thing. I mean, that sucks. I don't want to be that.
That sucks.
It does. That's like the worst. And that's where it's kind of like, well, we're all human. I don't know. That's where we just really like miss the bar. And not that we're right about talking about this. I don't know. Neither one of us are theologians.
I'm not saying that. I definitely would not go so far as to say like I'm right or even correct in any of these things that I'm saying. But what I am saying is I've tried the other way. I
and you're not alone. Like
in the other way. Yeah.
So many people reflect that.
Yeah.
Same sentiment.
And I can't go back to it.
That's
just
okay.
Can't go back to it.
That is totally okay.
But like what we were saying earlier, it's like, I think you and I are on pretty similar like spiritual paths.
Yeah.
Mentally or intellectually or whatever. And it's like this past couple weeks ago, I was like visiting my family. For some reason, like all of this stuff got brought up, and we started talking about faith and spirituality and like homosexuality, and like, and it just kind of turned into this weird amalgamation of all the hot button issues, like that are
those are some hot button issues
within evangelicalism right now, and my family got so upset.
Sure.
I mean, I could tell like it was it got really uncomfortable. Like, I felt like I was unjustly being attacked just for answering honestly about something. Like, I can't just subscribe to what you believe. I don't think that's what faith is. I don't think faith is demanding of ignorance of someone.
Yeah,
I really don't. And I
Yeah.
feel like that you bastardize faith when you make it all about, I'm going to say this, and if you don't believe it, you're not in the club. That's the tribalism that we're talking about.
Yeah.
That's not acknowledging someone's humanity and acknowledging their journey and their individuality. And and that's what I always want to be doing for other people. But like, the stakes are so damn high because you say one thing, like, I don't know if I believe this thing about the Bible.
Yeah.
And you have family members that will all of a sudden jump on that and be like, they're terrified that you might end up in hell. And so their reactions.
Do you think that's really what it is?
I witnessed it firsthand.
So
I mean, with my family,
No, my family's not like, I didn't grow up in church. We're not like a big church family.
Oh, this is good.
They have like, just typical conservative kind of family. you know, pretty blue collar, keep to yourselves kind of thing. But I never have to worry that, or I never feel like my family thinks I'm going to hell. That's different to me. I don't know what that's like. And I'm kind of I'm super thankful for that. No, I'm sorry if I'm like, I'm not.
No, good for you.
Feel bad. No, I mean, there's other challenges. Every family is riddled with challenges. And if you act like you're not, you need to look
Every
in the
family's
mirror.
fucking weird. Everybody's got their thing.
Yeah. But anyway, so that gets pretty heavy though. Like I just couldn't imagine literally someone talking to me with a honest level of concern of my future, like going to hell. Like,
so I had one of my family members that was like, do you believe in the Bible? Yes or no?
What'd you say?
I said, I don't know. I don't know how to answer that with a yes or no.
Sure.
Because I don't think that's a yes. It's kind of like, do you
That's
believe
a
in
complicated question?
Like, do you believe in mathematics? Yes or no? What kind? Like, I just it was so complicated.
When I'm sure they believe in the Bible is a living and breathing, right, kind of divine written. You can't place it in any particular place
every
or
culture
time,
believes
I
that they
think,
have
right?
like sacred texts. And the thing is that, like, I know what the right thing to say is to Christians.
Sure,
about
you know
the
what they
Bible.
want to hear.
Right.
Yeah.
I know that what Christians want to hear is everything in the Bible is true, and we're not going to dig like too much deeper than that, because we're just going to assume because it's what we ended up with now, and because there are parts in the Bible that tell us that all of it's true and that we should believe it, and like that. God, what was one of the things that they said? This is one of the things I've heard since I was a kid. Like, all Scripture is God breathed and everything. And it's like, no, but that was within one book talking about the Old Testament, like, which we've kind of moved past by the time you get to other parts of the Bible. And so I was just like, look, I think the Bible's a really beautiful work of literature. I don't think for it to matter in your life, for it to bring about like substantial change in your person, I think that there's a powerful narrative in it that's really helpful, no matter where you are, who you are, or what you're going through in life. But I don't know. I wasn't there. I don't have any reason to believe that somehow God came down and sort of had somebody transcribe what he was saying. And if it's that important to God, why did he do it in such a way? And I literally think this is just people throughout the course of humankind talking about their experience with God, what they believe to be God.
Mm-hmm.
And then over the course of thousands of years, this is our move away from a deity that sees the world one way. It's a move away from deities that see the world as something of a plaything, of a pet, of something to be taken advantage of and controlled and manipulated, and more into this idea that God cares about you as a person, that he's constantly reaching down to individual people. And he's not reaching down to Christians, mind you, in any of these stories. He's reaching down to people who either Christians don't exist yet or who very clearly are not like subscribers to his YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Like, and so if the entire Bible, if the thing that was so sacred to God to bestow upon humanity ends up being nothing but a book about stories of people that are just super fucked up, then I don't think it is a gospel for people that feel like we just want these rules. We've already got it figured out. I think it's a gospel for people who don't have it figured out.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think it's a gospel for the I don't knowers. Whew, did I say that?
That's it.
I don't think it's a gospel for the people that are like, I know that I know that I know.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I totally agree 100%. Yeah. I mean, nothing to add.
I mean, feel free to disagree because
I 100%
don't
agree. I mean, I 100% agree. That's what it's for. So Jesus came to give, it's not, the sick that need the doctor kind of thing. I can't remember the exact scripture, but that's essentially what you're saying, and that's the whole reason he came,
Yeah. It kind of takes on new meaning the older that I get, or the farther away from it that I get, the less literal that I start taking it.
No, that's good. And I think that's the beauty. And I really think that's the greatest argument for the Bible. If, if anyone wants to argue for it, for me, it's that it literally, like, I see it applying to every potential type of life out there, from the 5-year-old to the college scholar, to the critical thinker, to the debater, the non-believer. Like, I feel like it's the most scrutinized piece of literature that somehow still survives as probably the number one bestseller every year. And I know there's a lot of like, and I don't mean that, I know you sell Bibles based, you can talk about the church and being whatever, corrupt marketing, blah, blah, blah. But it's just, it captivates and fascinates more people every year than any other piece of literature that I know of. And just for that alone makes me be like, man, there's something to this. Like, why aren't people read this and move on if it's dead? Like, it literally, you can say it appears to be living and thriving and changing and applicable in 2018 as it is, blah, blah, blah. It's just fascinating writing. Yeah, it's crazy, so yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. I kind of feel like to truly understand what it is, I've had to get some distance from it. I'm still in the process of getting some distance from it. And what I mean by that is, like, if the Bible is true, if everything that's in it is to some degree, to a reasonable amount of truth.
I'm not one to say it's literal by any means, but
if this gospel that the Bible talks about is
not just the gospel,
not just a gospel for Jewish people, it's not just a gospel for people within a certain area of the world, it's a gospel for all men and all things at all time and all places. Is it talking about something that's always been? Is it talking about something that's always been and always will be a way to live life on this planet and not need to check out early? Yeah. Or is it really just this, like, has it become so perverted with Americanism? Has it become so perverted with this capitalistic idea of the gospel?
I mean, it has.
Yeah.
So that makes me wonder, like, and again, you and I are like probably the worst to try to do this, but what is it really if you strip it back to its most basic form, like its most basic message? What is that?
For me?
Well, sure. Yeah.
Or for you?
Well, for me, I think it's kind of, Jesus said, like, whatever the greatest commandment was, to love your neighbor like yourself, and to love God like he's God, right? Love your God. I mean, is that
to love God like he's God? That sounds like a Miley Cyrus song.
Again, you can tell how I need to brush up on this stuff, right? But so you take those two things. Is there anything? Can you find anything bad in that?
Yes.
You do.
So my I would say so. I believe that the my homeschooledness is showing. So it would be to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind, and to love your neighbor as yourself. Would be the greatest commandment, followed by the second greatest commandment that Christians would say. Is
Sure, that's fine. Yeah,
because when Jesus was asked, "What is the greatest commandment?" This is the answer that he gave. I think I've seen this idea of God get so misconstrued, like in these weird ways.
But that's what I'm saying. I'm not talking about like, I'm wondering like in its most basic form in itself,
right?
Not what other people did with them or what
you didn't just in my own personal interpretation, or just
like,
in the
is loving your neighbor or God in itself a bad thing?
I don't think so.
I'm not trying to corner you. That's just what I'm saying. My interpretation of the most basic version of the gospel.
Yeah.
And really, I guess it's the gospel more like the forgiveness of sins, blah, blah, blah. But when I think of the Bible as a whole, that's the most basic thing. Is like how to love other human beings, regardless of sexuality, race, religion,
right.
All these things that make us hate people.
Yeah.
Like to love other human beings and to like acknowledge where the source of life comes from and to love that thing, right?
Or that you don't have a monopoly on the source of life.
Absolutely. Or the genre of music that if you subscribe to the source of life, that you buy those records.
Right.
Anyways, no, so that's what... Sophie. That's what I'm wondering, like, in that and maybe it's not the most basic, purest form. I'm not a theologian if you didn't know. Yeah. But if that, to me, like that's if someone were to ask me in my most dumb answer, that's what I would give them. And I can't find any fault because I feel like at its most, that's basically what Jesus did was love those people greater. Like he loved them so well, like took shame off them, took, all the great, anyways. I don't know. Like, I can't find any fault in that. Now, I think you'd put that in the hands of a capitalistic society. It's like, it's going to get corrupted.
And they would quickly turn that into, we can do anything in the name of this God that we damn well please.
Yeah, we can accomplish all things through Christ who strengthens us. Yeah.
And it's manifest
destiny. I get it. And again, that sucks.
Yeah.
It sucks.
It's hard. But the weird thing is all these stories about Jesus feel like they're constantly pushing people away from that idea. Like,
it seems,
when you were saying that, it made me think, what is the Bible in its most basic form? I kind of feel like it's humanity reaching out to something higher than themselves, asking for purpose and meaning and value, and then something higher than humanity giving it and it being there. And there are people that accept it, and there are people that are like, we actually can't accept it. I have to work for it. I have to fabricate this worth. I have to fabricate this value.
Human nature, though?
Oh my God, yeah. But if it's human nature, and if God created all of humanity, then why was that written in the code?
Nature?
Yeah. But then I've also heard this argument that's like, well, but you have to have choice. And I think people blame suffering and loss on God many times, where it's like, but we don't actually know. And we do know that it was people that caused it. So why do we keep trusting people and blaming God? As opposed to like, well, why don't we just trust in, I don't even want to say God. Why don't we trust in something else?
Well, it's in possibly the idea that we don't have it figured out.
Yeah.
like, why can't you just at least not even trust, just acknowledge that there might be a different avenue that we haven't discovered yet?
Yeah. I guess that's kind of true. I mean,
you apply that to everything.
We do that on a micro level with music. At the beginning of the conversation, we were literally talking about, gosh, I just love why can't music be as creative as it used to be? Or why, and I feel like we get that way about life, about spirituality. And you know what? It does not slow the world down one bit. No. It does not slow people or humanity from careening towards whatever it is that we're careening towards one bit at all.
Mm-mm.
But what I can do is just take a minute and force myself to be quiet.
Come on.
And just see what comes out of the silence.
Preach.
Yeah. I mean,
seriously, you get back to the basic levels, the necessities of what humans need.
Yeah. Maybe it is just quiet. It's just quiet.
Mm-hmm.
I could be wrong about that.
I mean, you're not for me. That's definitely,
Yeah. I love it. Price, thank you for hanging out with me.
Really?
Like all day. Yes, we got to spend all day together and it was so much fun.
Yeah. So much fun. I can't wait to re-record all this guitar part.
Awesome. Hey, for everybody who's listening to the podcast right now, this is an abrupt it's a fucking abrupt ending to it. But I know everybody, it's getting late for us here actually, and I know that we need to wrap it up, and it's me taking advantage of people's time that I really enjoy spending time with. So I love you, Price.
Love you, my man.
You're awesome, dude. Yeah, for everybody listening, thank you so much for hitting that subscribe button on the 11 Life podcast, and absolutely love all of the different crazy things that you all are posting at the 11 Life Facebook page, Facebook group, for everybody who is checking out the Rock Candy Recordings online store. Gosh, you're helping make these conversations possible, and not only that, you make Price and I getting in the studio and coming up with really fun guitar parts all day even more fun.
Yes.
So it's kind of amazing, and you're to thank for that. And just want to, whatever you believe, whatever your heart is, wherever your thoughts are, just want to say that I'm very thankful for you. I'm thankful for your ears at this moment right now. And we love y'all. We'll see you next week.